Hello. How you guys doing? James here. I'm going to do one on a
You're a
politician.
busy owner operator, working hard.
This time it's going to be Tim Scott, and you're going to hear some video, and I'm going to explain the mentality of people like Tim Scott. And he's a Republican candidate, African American, black, and he has some interesting views. But I'm gonna let you hear the video, and I
You
get back
run
my
your trucking
commentary.
business. It's your life.
Oh shit! Damn. Sorry, it's the wrong one.
It must be some prerequisite when you run for office as a Republican and you're black or melanated. You gotta always shit on the black community. Now, Tim Scott, every time he gets on TV, he throws shade at the community, talk about how the black community's messed up or talk about welfare. It's sad coming from a black man. Now look, Tim Scott grew up, as he said, in a single-parent household. Okay, and he still was able to get to where he was at based off just having a mom in his life. Okay, standing ovation. No, fuck the standing ovation. Hey, way to go. He ain't the only one. And who says that I always come from a two-parent household, everything is great? But it seems like those on the right or those who are black and self-hating, they feel they gotta get ahead by shitting on the community. Last night at the presidential debate, Tim Scott talked about there's no racism in America. America's the greatest, blah, 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 blah. Look, Tim, if you think there's no racism in America, you don't speak for me or any other black man, woman, or child. Your ancestors, okay? My ancestors were in bondage. They were denied basic human rights. And I want to remind you, Mr. Scott, you ain't that old. Okay? Let's get that straight. Technically, we supposed to have been free. If you look at how the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, and all those things were, those were done in the mid to late 60s. Fair housing, that was done in 68. Right after King was assassinated. That was only done because of King assassination. So let's say 53 years, technically black folks have had some movement in this country. That every day you watch the news, you hear about horror stories about us being accosted, being attacked, being murdered. And she says no racism. So all those experiences that I've had, my brothers had, my father, my mother, my sisters, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, cousins, those are just figments of our imagination. See, it's black folk like Larry Elder, Tim Scott, Candace Owens, and many others who lead politically who have a certain mindset, always try to undercut the black experience. Let me read something to y'all real quick. This is not going to be a long commentary, but I just want you guys to understand. You believe you need to discriminate your ancestors to have a chance. Tim Scott insinuates that welfare was worse than slavery for black families, and Republican debate faces backlash. Tim Scott and Kennedy for the GOP presidential nominee insinuated that welfare is worse than slavery for black families. A remark that left social media in uproar. The South Carolina Senator participated in a Republican primary debate in Silicon Valley, California, which aired Wednesday night on Fox News. Scott made the comments when Kennedy was speaking about the country's educational system. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll tax and literacy tests, Scott said. We survived discrimination being woven into laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson Great Society, where they decided to put money, you continue, but was interrupted by the crowd applaud, where they decided to take black fathers out of the household to get a check in the mail. And now you can measure that unemployment and crime and devastation. First of all, it's an insult to just say that all black fathers or black mothers want the money so bad they said, okay, we're going to scap. That's a myth. And that's a myth that unemployment in the black community is sky high. It's high, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people are underemployed. Or a lot of people are shut out of jobs. It's not a great example. Let me give you an example. So, Colin Kaepernick, great quarterback. He took a knee. Donald Trump and those who are white, who are racist, and white I should say, got an attitude. Now mind you, the brother was a good quarterback, got his team in the Super Bowl. But you got mediocre quarterbacks in the NFL can't even throw the ball. Numbers, stats are low. But you don't hear nobody bad mouthing them. You hear nobody ragging on them. What about the brother and sister got to get the degree? But the white guy, the white gal, the Asian gal, don't have half the smarts or degrees that our brother and sister have. That these people had to work minimum wage jobs just to survive. And then the crime is everywhere. And a lot of this crime is self-inflicted based on the laws and rules which Republicans and Democrats push. When the black community in the 1960s started to rise up with the Black Panther Party, really was going out there, don't do it. They the one that was feeding kids in the morning, sitting in school. They had some type of meal and stuff. You have to learn better. Everybody knows if you send a kid to school with an empty stomach and they're hungry, you're not going to concentrate on school. They're going to be too hungry. They're going to want something to eat. So you feed them simple school with a filled belly. They was giving out shots. They was making sure kids got their shots. All these things to be implemented now. The Great Society gave us certain programs that a lot of Americans use or even abuse. It wasn't the black community that gave up. It was the people that put the screws to us. That very party that you love and belong to, Zip Scott, they were the ones that changed the laws. They made it hard. All the gains that black people made through the civil rights movement, they started taking away in the 70s, in the 80s. I mean, here it is, everything you turn around, this dude has something to say something about black folk. And I want to use this fair usage. Listen to this bastard can say. Fair usage, folks.
Families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to reach free.
Now, that's an insult, folks. Very insult. You and I know damn well it's more to the issues of the black community than what this dude stated. And people clap because he actually volunteered bullshit. That's unemployment in white communities. That's devastation in white communities. Fathers' homes in white communities. But it's like every damn politician, left or right, but mostly on the right, want to slam black folk in the black community. Dude, you want to get ahead that bad, you slam your own community. You know that you're Larry Elder and these other handkerchief heads, y'all are dangerous. See, I'm old enough to remember what was going on in the 1980s, where Reagan policies was going. I remember when they was cutting programs. I remember he went out there and did the welfare clean shit. And the media would have ran along with it to this day. Y'all these politicians accountable. And the only way you're going to hold them accountable is these companies that endorse these corporations and give them money. Look, I'm not telling you to go out there and say, hey, go sign to be a Democrat. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're a black person and you think what Tim Scott and these other handkerchief heads doing out here, always shitting on the black community, you need to be vocal. Going on social media just ain't gonna do it. It's high time that we get vocal about the policies that go in this country. It's everybody takes a turn kicking us in the rear. This buck-toothed bastard, he sits back and talks shit about his people every time. I get sick and tired of motherfuckers like him. All they do is cause problems. They play further to these racist tropes. I want you to listen to this in this full context. It's only fair usage, okay? Once again, fair usage. I want you to listen to what this dude is saying. Because it's sickening how he and Larry Elder and Candace Owens and Sage Steele and them keep making like, oh, the reason why the black community is because of what happened in 1960. Look, if you got people putting their finger on the scale, or you got people behind the scenes doing dirty things, of course it's going to become messy. It's going to become entangled. But to sit here and just say, oh, black folks, y'all sold yourself out, y'all took money, that's bullshit, that's insult. There are a lot of our brothers and sisters that work and contribute to society and still do. But this bastard is so thirsty for power. He's not going to get to the White House. That very group of people be clapping for him. Oh, we like Tim Scott. They can't stand your ass. This buck-toothed bastard. He has so much self-hate. He just want to sit at the table. He want to sit at the kitchen table. If he just gets to sit at the table, he in luck. But I want y'all to listen to watch this video. It's gonna make you sick. Hearing him talk about America's greatest, blah blah blah. You know, racism, blah blah blah.
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talk about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. Racist country. Never a racist country. Is not a racist, is not a America is not against, but America is not a racist country. 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 Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader.
You see this bastard? He just made it seem like black folks are paranoid, like we just made the shit up. So these black folks that got shot in Florida a few weeks back, that wasn't racism. brothers and sisters that got killed in the supermarket that wasn't racist. Us find out of crooked cops, bad teachers who have said racist things, done racist things. Those are just isolated instances. That's something we made it up. People like Tim Scott is dangerous. I'm telling y'all, we got to start calling this behavior out, whether it's from the left and the right. I don't care. Tim Scott wants to be a president so bad, he'll go out there and sell his people out. This massive film, but I made it. But you don't realize Tim, you're fucking token. Why do you think last week was attacking him about being single and shit? They did not want him to get any traction. Larry Elder can't even get in the debate because apparently he don't meet the criteria. So that means those white folks that you be pandering to, they don't like you. They'll keep Tim Scott out there because he's an elected official. They don't want too much of a blowback. But this cat is delusional. There's no racism. Woo!
Want to discover Ohio liquor? Chances are you already have. Because this moment, brought to you by...
Me clearly, America is not a racist country.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ever meet a sellout in life, just find a black Republican, because they all consistently do the same thing. As soon as the cameras are rolling, they get in front of the cameras and say the most disparaging thing about the community they come from. Candace Owens does it, Larry Elder does it, Jesse Lee Peterson, Tim Scott. I mean, every single one. I give you that. At least you are consistent about it. But I hope the butter biscuits were good last night, Tim Scott, because you really made an ass of yourself. So let's get into what he said when the cameras were rolling, ladies and gentlemen. Tim Scott suggests slavery wasn't as bad as welfare for black Americans. And that's already been debunked about us being the most on welfare. The most biggest group on welfare are white people, and it's always been that way. It's always been that way. And if it wasn't, then try to explain to us how 13% of the population were the biggest ones on welfare. It never happened. So y'all, let's get into this laughable debate. A lot of deplorable things were said during the Republican debate on Wednesday night, but this comment from Republican candidate Tim Scott may take the cake. During the debate, Scott argued that welfare assistance was harder than slavery for black Americans. Black families survived slavery, he explained. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country, he added. Wow, isn't that something? I thought he said America is not a racist country. In a line that for a moment sounded like he might actually be acknowledging systemic racism. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. Well, when I looked at single families, white women, a lot of white women in this country are raising kids on their own. A lot, and a lot of Latino women are raising children on their own. So, there's a lot of group of people that don't have a father in the house, but y'all harp on us because you're a bunch of racists, that's why. So, let's get back to this, ladies and gentlemen. Johnson's Great Society, launched in 1964, was one of the most significant federal social welfare programs in U.S. history. It greatly expanded welfare policy by writing Medicare and Medicaid into U.S. law, increasing Social Security benefits, and generally expanding assistance to the elderly and the poor. Well, Johnson did not do that for the black community. He did that for white folk. Exactly. All of these things, when they first came out, was geared towards the white community. They did not come out with these programs for us.
Right.
So that Scott had harsher words for welfare assistance. Then for slavery is not just an overt historical reach. Frankly, it's embarrassing. Yes, it is. For him to stand there and say such a thing. I mean, that, y'all, is that he must have got the biggest butter biscuit out of all the candidates that were there. He by far had the biggest butter biscuit. That is an absolute insult for him to stand somewhere and say that welfare was harder on the black community than slavery. We already know we are not favored by both parties. We know that both sides will say disparaging things about us. And when election time comes, that's when it really comes out. Not only on the national stage, you'll see this in...
Amid global market volatility, stock market losses, and rising inflation.
See this in local politics, state level, and of course nationwide. And if you want to score political points, attack the black community. Say the worst possible things about the black community and say it with a straight face, because these folks don't even care whether they're saying something accurate or not. It's just attack us at all costs. And it doesn't matter if it's a black candidate like Tim Scott. They all do it. They all do it. Every last one. We've seen them cooning out on the state level too, or when they want to run for governor, you know, or we'll see them not help when a black victim is murdered, like Daniel Cameron did to Breonna Taylor. You know, it's like, in order for you to be a Republican candidate, you got to have a level of disdain for the community that you come out of. Then you can make it in politics. This is really sad that this man is willing to stoop to these levels. But what it does say, even a black Republican hates his own. He can't stand his own people. I tell you what, it doesn't give us much hope about switching parties when we see stuff like this, because I hear people, oh, y'all should switch over to Republicans. The Democrats ain't doing nothing for you. But y'all, the Republicans don't do nothing for us either. Let's be real. And then y'all come back with that, oh, the Democrats, the party of the Klan. Yeah, you know, yeah, that's true. But here's the piece you keep leaving out. When the Civil Rights Act was signed, those Dixiecrats that were Klan members switched over to the Republican Party. You know, that's the part y'all conveniently leave out all the time. So the way I see it, it ain't worth our while to be in either party. But y'all, tell me what you think about Tim Scott and what he said.
So Tim Scott said Americans ain't racist, right? Let me show you what an incident happened recently in 2023 in Portland, Oregon.
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the moment of truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Portland, Oregon, Saturday, September 2nd, 2023, 6 o'clock p.m. Portland police went to a metro train platform in response to a report of a stabbing. When they arrived, they found 2 victims suffering from injuries, both of them just 17-year-old children. Both the victims as well as the eyewitness accounts say that the attack began on the train. The 2 victims had been on the train riding to their destination when a white man sitting in front of them jumped up and turned to face them. He was dressed all in black with a sweatshirt that said "Villain" in white letters, not very subtle. He then shouted F, followed by a racial slur as he began his rampage, stabbing one teenager in the chest with a 3-inch pocket knife. The second teen's arm was slashed by the attacker as well. The assailant fled, but was spotted a few minutes later. After a brief foot chase, he was arrested. Not surprisingly, the cops took him in alive. No word on whether they took him to Burger King afterwards. The white media has identified the assailant as Adrian Cummings, who they're calling a 25-year-old homeless man who struggles with addiction. That's how they described this would-be killer. When the psycho killer Daniel Penny strangled Jordan Neely to death, the white media didn't call Jordan Neely a homeless man who struggled with addiction. They tried to demonize him every way they could, and he didn't harm anyone. Meanwhile, this animal tries to kill 2 children, but these racists in the white media call him just a homeless man who wrestles with addiction. They say that as if that was all there was to this guy, but of course, they weren't telling the whole story. The teenager who was stabbed in the chest had to be taken to the hospital in critical condition for damage to his heart and internal bleeding. Neither of the victims knew why this race killer attacked them, since they had done nothing to him, but as we already know under white supremacy, these killers don't need a reason, they just need an opportunity. We know exactly why this happened, and the white media does too, because they've gone to great lengths to avoid saying who these 2 victims were. They were both 2 black teenagers. The Fox affiliate article that I'm citing from only mentions the word black once. That's it. Once in the entire article, and they don't even put it into the headline. 2 black teenagers are the victims of a knife attack by a white supremacist. One of them stabbed in the chest and nearly dies, and the white media thinks that their race is insignificant. When you go to other white media outlets, though, they don't even mention the victims being black at all. This is deliberate. It's meant to cause confusion. The white media hopes to get people to move on since they provide so few details about the crime. These white supremacists are making it a point to target black children. We need to understand that. When it comes to the Dylan Roofs and the Peyton Gendrons and the Adrian Cummings, we're dealing with animals here, not human beings. The white supremacist has no conscience or decency. Keep that in mind when dealing with them. And that includes the white media who runs interference for them. They went out of their way to not mention that the victims of this hate crime are black. And that was deliberate, because the Portland area is in the Northeast. People would just assume that the targets were most likely Asian, but of course the white media doesn't say that either. This is how propaganda works. People are conditioned by the narratives that the white media uses. They make it a point to use certain words and phrases in specific instances to talk about certain people, and that's how they condition the public mind. So when you talk about Portland or Seattle and make sure to show only white and Asian faces, people will intentionally be misled into thinking, well, this was probably some anti-Asian hate. And then people will call for a hate crime law specifically for Asians, and when you point out that black people are the overwhelming majority of hate crimes victims, we're told, well, it can't be that bad. People believe what they see from the white media, or in this case, they believe what they didn't see. Cummings has since been indicted on a slew of charges, including 1 count of second-degree attempted murder, 1 count of first-degree assault, 1 count of second-degree assault, 2 counts of first-degree bias crime, 1 count of first-degree robbery, 3 counts of unlawful use of a weapon, 1 count of interfering with public transportation, 1 count of first-degree attempted assault, and 1 count of second-degree attempted assault. Now, you probably see 1 or 2 charges in this list that don't actually have anything to do with the attempted murders on that day in specific, And that's because you won't be surprised to learn this isn't Adrian Cummings' first run-in with the law. In fact, it wasn't even his first run-in of the summer. Before I go any further, I found that the white media basically didn't want to have to report on this guy's priors. I had to really dig to find any mention of them, and I had to go to a number of different sources, because none of these white media outlets had them all in one article or even one website. But this guy has been a one-man crime wave in the city for several months now. On July 7th of this year, Cummings was arrested after he caused a disturbance at a restaurant, and when the employees told him to leave, he pulled a knife and began cursing at them. He then took several steps toward their security guard. He was scheduled for a court appearance in early August, but of course he didn't show, so the judge issued a bench warrant, and police didn't have to wait long to find him because they would arrest him twice in the month of August. The first August arrest occurred when he was caught urinating in public on a university campus. Police found 2 knives and an expandable baton on him. The second arrest came on August 30th, a few days before he carried out his race attack on that train. That time he was arrested for jaywalking. Police saw that he had a warrant out, so that being the case, why wasn't this guy in jail already if he had a bench warrant and the police had already arrested him a number of times?
Well, we have some new information this evening now about a horrific attack police say was racially motivated. We are talking about the man accused of stabbing 2 teenagers on a MAX train over the weekend. Adrian Cummings is now charged with attempted murder, assault, and bias crime. Now, it turns out prosecutors say Cummings should have been in jail at the very time of that attack, though we've learned he was turned away and released despite a judge's order to keep him in custody. Investigative reporter Evan Watson went to try to squeeze some answers at what appears to be a gap in our system.
Earlier in August, Portland police arrested Cummings. He had an outstanding warrant for failing to show up to court on charges of menacing with a knife. That happened earlier this summer. A judge ordered that Cummings needed to be held in jail until a hearing in late September. A police officer brought him to the jail, but jail officials and Corrections Health denied booking him. After KGW pressed for answers as to why Cummings wasn't held, a Multnomah County Sheriff's Office spokesman said on Wednesday that Cummings wasn't held in jail because of health or medical reasons. The spokesman did say health reasons are the most common example someone would be denied booking. In this case, Cummings was released from custody and is now accused of robbing a store, stabbing 2 boys in a racially motivated attack, and running from police.
So you see, he had already been arrested after the judge issued the order saying to lock him up, and yet the authorities just couldn't seem to hold him because, well, reasons. Though I think it's important to note that after he attempted to kill those 2 black teenagers, suddenly the county jail actually held him. Though the authorities refuse to say why it is that suddenly they've been able to keep him in custody, I guess his health must have improved miraculously, right? Or perhaps it's because of all of the media coverage that's been heaped on this case. But that's far from his only run-ins with the law. After his attempted double murder hate crime, the owner of a local convenience store said that he recognized Cummings as the perpetrator of an armed robbery at his store. He had stolen a number of items and then tried to stab the store owner's son several times when the young man attempted to stop him. Police have reviewed video footage of the incident and confirmed that Cummings was indeed the person who committed that crime too. Back in April, Cummings was involved in a fight on the Metro train. Gee, I think I noticed a pattern forming. That time he was armed with a gun, which led to him being charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. And why was he a felon, you ask? You see, this reprobate isn't from Portland at all, or from Oregon, or even from the West Coast. He's actually a wanted fugitive from Ron DeSantis' state of Florida. This guy had been convicted of drug possession, and while he had been on parole, he skipped the state. Florida authorities issued an arrest warrant for him, but no matter how many times he was arrested in Oregon, he was never held nor extradited back to Florida. Instead, they just kept letting him go. Which pretty much is exactly what the folks in Florida did. His presence in Portland, the violent crime spree he had been on, the attempted double murder hate crime he had committed, wasn't some coincidence. This is the Ron DeSantis effect, him and Christopher Rufo. When you hear DeSantis or Rufo saying that they want what they've done in Florida to become a blueprint for the nation, this is what DeSantis and Rufo are talking about. We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, propaganda, and the pushing of phony white grievance that's meant to justify it. That has been Rufo and DeSantis' goal, to to pass laws and make public statements meant to make it clear that they are at war with black people and to encourage those with genetic immunity from the law to do the same. And as we saw in Jacksonville last month and have now seen this month, the racists from Florida are carrying out an organized race war against black people nationwide, and it is not random. This has been their goal from the very beginning. The law doesn't touch those with genetic immunity because you have racists like Rufo and people who think like him who are the ones who actually administer the law. And as we've seen with this Cummings creep, they just keep letting certain people go no matter what. This is done in order to make sure that certain people are given as much freedom in the society as possible. And this way, whenever some of them feel the urge to commit some hateful crime of violence, they won't be hesitant. Now, this creep is one of these super predators the white media and the politicians don't talk about, so he targets people very carefully for his acts of violence. He didn't just pick those kids at random. He targeted them because he figured that being kids and not being part of the criminal class, they would be unarmed. Soft targets. That's what these white supremacists look for. White supremacists hate the idea of hate crimes altogether because to them, that's punishing whiteness. That's what they say, by the way. Hate crime laws are meant to punish being white. Now, who's been arrested just for being white? The laws are meant as an enhancement to crimes committed based on motive, but what they're really saying is what their actual mentality is. That apparently, to some of them, they feel that anti-black violence is part of being white. At least to the white supremacists, that's how they see it. They're telling on themselves. This case is yet another in an endless string of examples of why there needs to be an anti-black hate crime law. Black people are the primary and majority victims of hate crimes in the United States. Even when the white media was making a sensation out of Stop Asian Hate, black people were still the majority of hate crimes victims. And yet you can't even get the so-called politicians in Congress or at the state level to make an issue out of it, not even the black ones. When it comes to hate crimes, they have an open policy of not doing anything where black people are concerned. But for any and everyone else, they can suddenly move. For example, back in May, just a few months before this race attack happened in Portland, the state of Oregon changed their guidelines for pretrial detention as it pertains to hate crimes. Oregon's Chief Justice signed an order that made it where people who have been accused of first-degree hate crimes can't just get out of jail the very same day that they've been arrested. They have to wait at least until arraignment before the judge. And the reason why? Because you had a white man who attacked a family of Japanese descent. You see, if it's the black people we're talking about, well, there's nothing we can do. No laws are going to get changed. We're not changing anything. Oh, George Floyd was heinously murdered? Well, we're not changing anything. But with any and everyone else, oh, well, we can change laws for them. We can do something for them. That's how you understand that there is a rigid policy, an ironclad policy of targeting black people, that this for them is a hill they're prepared to die on. This is not merely some happenstance. This is the core of their political philosophy. This is what their laws are geared around. Making sure that attacking black people goes unpunished is the core of America's public policy. As black people, we have to take personal protection seriously. But understand, these white supremacists are making it their strategy to target black children. That requires extra vigilance on our part to help look out for each other. But it also requires extra determination on our part to stop these race attacks too. The authorities have a program at work meant to keep these violent criminals on the streets until they eventually kill a black person, and only then will they finally be arrested. Maybe. Well, if some white supremacist calls themselves trying to get you or some other black person on the metro train, then you make sure to put them on the bullet train out of here. And that's this week's.
Welcome to BreezeLine, where anything is
But there's
possible
no
thanks
racism
to better
thing, huh?
internet. With lightning fast speeds up to 1 gig, nobody misses.
Yeah, prove these people wrong with actual facts.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. So, there's nothing new under the sun. That's what the Bible says, y'all. Nothing new under the sun, even with these governments. Anyway, you all remember back in the day how these governments would be over our people. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Anyway. You can't creep up on me like that, cat, okay? He just came out of nowhere. I should have known because the dog was barking. Anyway, back in the day, we knew how the governments treated our people, you know, under their rulership. So there is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. I thought it was very interesting that Joe Biden, in talking about a possible government shutdown, he says that the black community is going to suffer more than anyone. They love to send those little messages out into the atmosphere. And I really feel that our people need to wake up and smell the coffee. Wake up and smell the coffee and see what is really going on, what is really happening, right? There has been a successful campaign to divide and conquer us as a people. A successful campaign. Why is it successful? Well, look around the black community. It is very difficult for our people to come together because most of the time they are not on one accord. The majority of our people don't even care about what's happening, right? This is why the scripture tells us that only a remnant is a small portion of a larger group. Okay, so that being said, it is pointless to talk about coming together with people who don't seem to be able to do that because they are not on the same page as to what's even going on in the world, right? Not even on the same page. And so I feel like the solution to these things that the government puts out there where they're saying the black community is going to suffer the most, they tell us these things, right? Because they already know that our people have been trained to be a certain way towards one another. And so realistically, of course, when you say the black community is going to suffer the most, of course. Because that has been the one group of people that the powers that be have sought to divide. And that division has done a number on us, right? They put these messages out there, though, to try to make it seem as though they care about what happens in the black community when really they don't. They don't really care. They're not saying this like, oh my goodness, the black community is going to suffer. We must warn them. We must let them know. It's not like that.
No.
When it comes to services, now someone made a really good point. They find all of the money that they need to help Ukraine. But right here on your own soil, people who have lived here for centuries and suffered here and, did all kinds of things, paid taxes into the system. Even if you didn't pay taxes into the system and you were on government assistance, right? You are a citizen of this country, but they find all of the billions that they need to help citizens of another country. But at the same time, they're telling you that if a certain thing happens, if a government shutdown happens, then the black community is going to suffer more than anybody else. How is that even possible? Anyway, let me bring it back to reality. And for me, reality is biblical prophecy, what the Most High told us would happen, right? It was said, it was prophesied that we would be in a land where the people wouldn't care for us. They wouldn't give any regards for the old or the young, male or female, right? And that their hearts would be set against us, right? And so this is why the policies are always set against us. You say, well, how could this be? Well, if you read the book, you would know how it could be, right? Now, I had someone, over the years I've had a number of people, but recently I noticed a comment where someone was telling me that I need to let go of this stupid book talking about the Bible that the white man wrote, and this is why they know what's going to happen, this is why they're doing. I mean, you know, you can believe what you want to believe. You know, at the end of the day, I believe what my father has said. I see the proof. You give too much power to a group of people by saying that they could write this book and determine these things. And, you know, they got the books you're talking about, they got them from our people, you know. When they went over there into Africa, they stole a lot of our ancient books that the ancient prophets, black prophets, had written, right? If you can believe that they stole artifacts, what makes you think that they didn't steal the writings of our people as well? So, for those of you who want to continue to say that the Bible is the white man's book, you know, if I can't convince you otherwise, I'm not going to keep on trying to. But for those who will hear and understand that the things we see happening that were prophesied are words spoken through the prophets by the Most High, then there is hope. But for those of you who choose not to believe and you just think that they have all this power in the world to do all of these things and that nothing can stop them, it's getting to the point where those of us who cry aloud and spare not, we are not going to keep wasting our time trying to convince you otherwise. We're just going to speak the word and you can believe what you believe. All I know is at the end of the day, this successful campaign of divide and conquer is happening. And when they say that the black community is going to suffer the most, it has nothing to do with them writing the book. It's more to do, it has more to do with the fact, sorry about that these people are programmed to carry out certain aspects of biblical prophecy, just like everyone are. We all are playing the part that was assigned to us by the Most High. Okay? This is not for us to be afraid, not for us to be concerned about. In a sense, we do have to be concerned, but our concern shouldn't be worry. Let me just put it to you that way. We don't need to worry. We just need to fortify. As I always say, we need to fortify our lives and not sit back waiting for solutions from the people. Kind of walking down the hill here a little bit. Okay, I gotta watch my step a bit. I don't want to stumble, especially if this cat keeps walking by.
I'm going to stop it right here because I got too many minutes, but I'm going to put in my commentary. For people like Tim Scott, this man makes Sambo look like a Malcolm X. I'm just going to come out. He makes Sambo look like Malcolm X. I mean, you know who Sambo is, right? Some character. You know, he was the worst of the worst on the plantation when it came to turning other blacks into the slave masters, and that's what he is. He's a Sambo, clear straight out Sambo. You know, I do believe that it's probably one of the people in his bloodline that was like that on the plantation. There was always the one that have to feel like they have to please the master. And so that's what they do. And what they don't realize is that them people don't respect you. They just tolerate you. but they don't respect you. And people like you, and some who are on social media, like they mentioned. You don't understand this. And Tim, did it dawn on you what happened in Buffalo, Jacksonville, Charleston a few years ago? What has it ever dawned on you? It just happened recently in Oregon, and there's been plenty other incidents that happened to black people who was not doing anything criminally minded. But you said, and then how it lacked, and how America's not racist. But you keep seeing the same victims come off like that. Sometimes it came from citizens, and what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. Sometimes it happened like Philando Castile, a black man that was loved by his community in Minnesota, and a cop got away and gunned him down in front of his child. But we don't have no racism problem. And it was a big case, Breonna Taylor. We go on and on and on, but we don't have a racism problem. And to say something stupid and the most outrageous as slavery. People get plantation, getting beat in the hot day sun if they don't comply. Slave masters going into the slave headquarters. Telling the black man, I'm gonna have your woman, and you ain't gonna do anything about it, boy. So that's you saying that since that it's worse than that. You saying that the fact that the part where in Louisiana, Florida, they take the slave babies and make crocodile food for them. But America's not racist. Then there's relic in some parts of the country. They still got relic of an alligator chasing a black baby. But America's not racist. They made a movie at the White House in the 1920s, I believe it was 1920s or 1900s, Rebirth of a Nation. And the president thought it was the most highly successful film. The president that you run for office. You running for office, and this was in the 1920s. Rebirth of a Nation. Look it up, President Tim Scott. Make him and put on blackface. And then since you want to be in the White House so bad, these same people would put that same and made that film, showed that film that the Ku Klux Klan was the heroes of that film, and in that time murdered tons and tons of black people in the 20s and 30s were lynched. But I guess you want to look past that history. Some of you conservatives, and it still go on. And then you have someone like that mammy down there in Jacksonville, Florida, for DeSantis when those people were under duress. Talk about y'all need to be quiet now. Y'all need the governors be, because you know I got to play some. I like gifts. A whole Jacksonville was traumatized by that. Then it's just something recently. You know that situation happened in Montgomery, Alabama? You know that they charged, they almost killed that dock worker for doing his job, Tim? They almost killed him, and it turned out to be a brick brawl. And it was the white people that came down there from another part of Alabama to start some crap when he was doing his job, told him to move the boat, Tim. But America don't have no racism. Calling the N-word and try to kill that man. 5-10 people jumped on him. And that's why they had to come and back him up. His whole crew. Then on top of that, that's considered a hate crime. But but they didn't get charged with hate charge. Oh yeah. We had a case recently. A young man in Denver, Colorado, Elijah McClain, was walking home. He wasn't much of a threat. The young man was probably no more than 130 pounds. Wearing a hoodie. And cops rolled up on him. They murdered him, Tim. They murdered him. An innocent kid in Colorado Springs. Didn't do nothing. What about the young man that got shot, young teenager got shot in Missouri? But America's not racist, right? He got shot by his neighbor for knocking on the door. But America's not racist, Tim, right? You Sambos will really say that. And some of you Sambos, all you willing to do is point out maybe some little crime is in the city. And you willing to sell you out over time. And she's right. That's why some black people don't come together. And it's funny that even in politics, that like Phil Scott would say, it's funny how the Asian caucus, the Native American, the Asian Pacific and Native American caucus can fight for justice for their cause, and it's some will represent them and get legislation law. And you got a black caucus won't do a darn thing and won't play bougie. But when it comes, come on now, come vote for me. Then you gotta go to the rappers. Go get Puff Daddy. Go get Cardi B or somebody to try to talk that hip hop. Try to play on majority of people's mentality. But America's not racist though. But they don't approach these other communities. They'll go to. Come on. Because the Latino community, they talk what they specifically want. The Asian specifically, they get the best and the brightest to speak. But we got black people don't even want to speak. That's a damn shame. And it takes grassroots black people to point this out. The Middle Eastern community, the Arab community, you have representatives fighting for them, from Michigan to New Jersey. But we got a bunch of black representatives don't want a Sambo. Want to use the church as the platform. Come on with old Pat, and that's why some black people can't stand going to church. Because you got they cater to these politicians and they rub elbows. Meanwhile, the majority of people are suffering. You have food deserts. You're disabled. You're a single mother with children are suffering. We know it. But America, and they design it, Tim. Gentrification, they design it. Black people have the highest population of being evicted, of one people getting evicted right now. Tim. But you don't care. You live in a fantasy world. And I said, man, and it's one thing if somebody was young, because we all done some things when young, but it's sad when an old person is foolish to have this mindset, I have a coonish mindset. That's really sad, because that's a legacy, but majority of black people won't respect you. Wow. But you say there's no racism. Where's all these incidents happening? And still racism going on. Still racial issue going on and throughout the towns and American cities. Oh yeah. Not by people who's committing crime. The blacks that's committing crime. Criminals. These are innocent black people who have no record. kids being picked on, called the N-word in school. But America don't have no racism. Really. What planet have you been living on? I mean, it's ridiculous. And I understand, I have white friends too, but damn, come on, man. And it's like some black people, it's true, it's like, it's like you cave in like they're God. Not like they're just another person. You do. Some of you do. Some of us tend to do that. We can't stay balanced. That's the truth. We have colorism problem, and the reason why we can't get over with racism is because some of the things from the plantations it's within us. When we make comments like that, you've been traumatized so much. So this, maybe if I can just sell this person out, and we about to go into, and that's black Americans from across the country are going to be the fourth class or maybe fifth, suffering the worst. Why you letting everybody over? Being productive citizen, working jobs, working class blacks, low, but you want their vote. I ain't voting for you. And I ain't voting for the Democrats either. I ain't a Democrat or a Republican. It's sad. It's the saddest day. They're right. But you say that, it's sad. Just join and beat up on black people. Beat up on your own people that's already been marginalized and technically is trying to find to weed out and destroy in different areas of liberty and life. Keep them in poverty. Make them by condition as other places in the world. Black Americans, that's what they try to do. So only a handful can get through, while majority of us got suffered when we're trying to come out the barrel. But you trying to keep us in the barrel. Ain't that a bitch? You very delusional black man. And many of you are very delusional. You have no idea. And you just think that they're around you? Oh boy. Live and learn. Live. For some people like that, they're gonna learn when reality hits them. You might be invited to the club, but at the end of the day, you're still black. They still gonna think you're not too competent, not too intelligent, Tim. They don't want you married in their family or nothing, Tim. They don't want your Negro blood. Oh, they like you. You're the entertainment. That's how it is with some of them. And you have black people who are like that. It's just really sad. You don't know how to be balanced with your own people. It's alright to love other people, but you don't even know how to be balanced. To sell your own down the drain. I'm glad I was brought to see. Yeah, I was raised in the city, been to the suburbs, but it didn't change me. Because when I went to the suburbs, no matter if I was away from my own people, I knew what time it was. Because when I was by myself, as a black man, I know how people are. I see that other part of racism that some of them have. Because I became invisible. But when I was around my people, as a vast majority, I'm visible. But when I go around them, I'm invisible. And they choose to put me visible when it's a majority of them. Then they feel comfortable. When it's less of us, one of you, and more of them. Fact. But But I learned, I used to have a naive, I was naive at one time when I was in my 20s. But when you on the other edge of reality, you see how racism just don't come in one form. I keep telling people, it shows as many head on your job, where you go, institution, systemic, it shows. And sad thing about it is, you have some people that's dead asleep, and the ones who are dead asleep, the ones who are doing it, keeping them asleep, they laughing. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this video. But yeah, it's a sad day. So black people, think about what he said. Really, vote, but vote maybe independent. Libertarian, don't vote for none of them. Because you don't have to vote for a particular party, whether they're Republican or Democrat. Because they're going to use the same dog whistle on both sides. So let this election come November 4th be a lesson. So I'm glad it's being exposed. Even Biden, he's showing you who he really is. All you have to do is open up your spiritual eyes and see it. Alright then, be blessed. Until next time, take care. See you on the next video. Like and subscribe.